I'm Sophie. I've been around the block for quite a bit now. I've done both people operations role and am currently startup advisor on both people and operations in different kind of startups, but mainly I really focus on seed stage, early stage, up to Series A and Series B. Oh, maybe the fact that I'm a little bit of a control freak sometimes. Not sure if it's a good or bad thing, both in personal and professional life. I do find that sometimes I overwhelm myself because I want things to be in specific order that I expect them to be in. I think coming into a COO role has actually been quite a natural progression, I would imagine. If people were to look at my CV or just have been following my career so far, I came from an engineering background before I actually moved into HR, recruitment, and talent, and really focusing, the last 6-7 years of my career predominantly on culture and people. I think coming into a COO role began to start to feel a bit more natural for me. It's when I felt like a lot of the times I was trying to solve problems with processes, and I was trying to find the most available data possible in the company to try and make some more, or equip the company altogether to make more data-driven decisions. And we all know that, I'm sure most of my peers would agree that when you live in the HR world for far too long, it's sometimes, can feel more about people, less about data. And I know that the direction that we've always been talking about is more data-driven decisions make less emotional-driven decisions, which, in the end, the company can only benefit from. And so, like I said, in a nutshell, it feels like it's been a natural kind of progression into the role, I would say, and very much so one that I truly enjoy. And I feel like it fits me like a glove at the moment, because while I am really passionate about, people problems and making sure that people is at the priority of the agenda, but equipping it with the right frameworks, processes, and data have actually kind of exponentially made the people agenda a lot more important. Well, everything under the sun, to be honest. I think there's a lot of misperception about what a COO role really is. And to be perfectly honest with you, based on, just the people I've met in my network, in the community, including my mentors themselves, no one COO is exactly the same as another one. And, in a lot of ways, you can call us a jack of all trades, where, you're allowed to wear as many hats as possible and change as many hats as possible at any one point in time, being incredibly agile, being able to pivot wherever the company needs you to. Or traditionally, I think a lot of COOs were seen as running the business while the CEOs are busy fundraising. So I would say my role has so far been a combination of both, although, I do naturally still gravitate towards people and culture as well. So that's kind of like a typical day of mine, where it's people, culture, processes, governance, risk. Although we've got really good finance marketing team as well. So I tend not to have to look after those areas. I think actually, bringing the right credibility on the table as to what your SME verticals are. Like I said, no one CEO is exactly the same as another. And I have stepped into this role particularly when we've had a COO leave as well. So for me, it was kind of like, the biggest challenge at the very start was to try and learn to fit into those particular shoes. But then very quickly also realize that actually you can shape it however you think it works for the company and how you can actually add the most value to the company. And since then, I have learned, including in my other operational advisory roles as well, to be a lot more open-minded coming into the role without thinking that I've got to be an expert in certain areas. And from then on, I find it a lot more rewarding. I definitely find a lot more joy because I see a lot more opportunities in learning new skills. I think interpersonal relationships, being able to actually forge great relationships with both your teams, in fact, all levels of the company is incredibly important. And I feel like it's a huge strength to have, and this is where you can add the most value, because as you can imagine, on a day-to-day basis, being pulled into different directions, you've got to be quite agile and quite open-minded. And if you do have those relationships already, it does make breaking barriers, changing status quo, and things like that a lot easier. And at the same time, as you can also imagine, part of the role is to bring people on a journey, say implementing brand new things. You're mostly part of change management as well. You're almost like a transformation architect when you're working in a role like this. So I think it's incredibly important to be able to, learn how to build interpersonal relationships, bring people on a journey, bring teams on a journey, just so that every change that you're driving as part of the role is all about continuous improvement. Every change that you are trying to drive in the company becomes a little less harder. One golden advice I have gotten before I came into a full-fledged COO role many moons ago was that you have to believe that you've got something to give. And you don't necessarily need to have a linear career path to lead you into this role. I think there's a lot of autonomy if the company believes, not in a traditional way, if the company believes in the value that you're bringing to the table, then I say feel really confident and try and form the role and form your role as much as it fits you, because you can only do your best work when you actually trust yourself. So that would be, my key advice, because that's pretty much the advice I got when I came into the role, thinking that, well, I'm not your traditional COO because I have come from a people and culture background. How would this work? And clearly nowadays we see more and more of this transition. So it's been really encouraging. I do, though, want to point out that coming into a COO role should also mean that you've got a good enough technical capabilities in actually being very data oriented, very operational, very governance and risk oriented as well, because that's really the core of the role. But everything else that you have learned in your SME vertical should always be able to bring value to the company. I think being able to talk about culture, people, and operations in the same room. I don't think we've done enough of that. I am particularly excited about a couple of the topics that are going to be presented by my peer speakers, around how important it is to be able to, always you don't just say you want to put people at the forefront of your agenda, but what if you've actually got the right backing, the right support system to be able to prioritize people effort, and how can we turn it into something that's a lot more prominent in the company via an operational skills. So I'm incredibly excited about being able to put, all those three words, people, culture, and operations, in the same room, which, has been quite a rare occasion